talk more about this, we can bring in Missimo, who's a research associate at Loughborough University London's Institute for Diplomacy and International Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us on France 24. As we mentioned, Leo has repeatedly criticized the US government's treatments of immigrants in particular. What do you make of his comments? Is he overstepping as Pope?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, even before, when Pope Leo was simply Cardinal Prevost, he was quite vocal in denouncing what the policies of the United States were regarding migrations and migration policies. So I think that basically he's been coherent with what the cardinal before thought, and now even if it's Pope. Of course, probably the style has changed, especially I believe it has changed from comparing to the style of his predecessor Francis, probably less vocal, but I think still the message that the new Pope is delivering, and probably he needs some time to get used to this new role, but it seems to me that it has increasingly made his message clear and somehow criticizing directly the decisions of the United States, not just in terms of migration, but I think also the role that the United States is having now as a mediator in the Russia and Ukraine conflict. So I think it has started to be quite clear in the message that is delivering right now.
And earlier this month, Leo appointed a pro-migrant archbishop to the post of Cardinal of New York, replacing a conservative. What's the significance of this move?
Yes, clearly the previous Archbishop of New York, Dolan, was quite a conservative, and I would say controversial figures on many aspects. The new figures is very similar to the new Archbishop of New York, Hicks. It's somehow very similar to the new figure, to the new Pope, someone who has spent, of course, he was born in Chicago in the Chicago area as the new Pope, but also spent most of his life in Latin America, and in this sense is also a continuation of the design of Francis of talking with the poor in the poorest areas of the world, in what Pope Francis was calling the peripheries of the world. So again, clearly, it was not it was a powerful message and a clear policy, a clear direction of what we can expect from this new pontiff, from this new Pope, and this decision in New York, I think, was clearly in line with his ideology, with his message. Probably not as vocal as we were used to see Francis, but again, I think it was a clear message to the United States as well to show what is the path. And I would say that Trump, also notably, Trump has decided not to go to confrontation against the Pope, but is also adopting quite an unusual strategy towards the Pope that is not common for Trump, who instead likes to directly engage and confront his opponents, his adversary. But also Trump, I think, is playing a bit differently with the Pope.
And given this, what extent, or to what extent, does the Pope have the potential to influence, perhaps not policy in the US, but at least public sentiment among Christians in the United States?
Well, I think we should not look at the role of the church like with too heavy political lenses, but it's true that Pope Leo is a very popular figure in the United States. First of all, because as your correspondent also was saying, he was the first US-born pontiff and the first Pope born in the United States. Clearly, he has a popular support. And I think we should not expect that the previous strategy embraced by Francis, who was a Jesuit, he had a completely different approach, and he was also quite vocal. He wasn't. He had clearly a different style. Where, of course, he had some positive aspects, but he had also some risky consequences, especially within the church. It might have created some tensions. But it's true that what I think is that the Pope is quite effective in denouncing what Trump is doing well or not doing well. He was quite vocal denouncing the plan that the United States had dealt with Russia and with Witkoff, and he denounced it, that this was clearly the risk was to break apart the historic relations between Europe and the United States. So it seems less and less shy to oppose some of the United States policies. And on the other side, I think that Trump has understood that he is a popular figure, and he's not treating Pope Leo as Sleepy Joe or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. He understood that this is completely different level of discussion, and indeed it seems quite silent. He's not responding to the attacks moved by the Pope, and J.D. Vance, the vice president, even invited the Pope for a state visit to the United States. So Trump is very smart on this, and I think he understood that he can't go too far. He can't have a confrontation with the current Pope. Would be too risky.
And you mentioned that Leo has commented less. He's been less outspoken than his predecessor, Francis, regarding the state of democracy in the US and elsewhere, of course. Why do you think that is?
This is very interesting. Probably he's less afraid of speaking, probably considering his background. I think also biographies in this sense might help. But he's been less afraid also to defend Europe, and this was quite unusual. I think if we think, while somehow Francis was a bit more ambiguous. He used some very he used the term that Europe and NATO were barking against Russia. It seems to me that this in this sense, this Pope is a more Western Pope, and also he's more concerned with some of these principles, defense of democracy. So it seems that he has embraced these principles, and he has started to defend this publicly in a quite stark way. Yes.
Do you think his words can sway any of the parties, for example, in Ukraine and Russia, as they go through the endeavor of peace talks?
Well, this is a very hard question to answer. Clearly, it's very. It seems to me that it's true that the Pope and the Church is the Church is an institution that needs to talk with everybody, with everyone, and on many occasions with Francis, but with Leo, they offer themselves to be a sort of mediator within the two parties. But it is also true that for a just peace, we also need to recognize who was the aggressor, who was the victim of the aggression. So clearly, taking a clear stance can help, I think, in the support of the victim of Ukraine. But I'm not sure that. Of course, it might help in terms of creating a sort of consensus and seeing that there is also such a high moral sense support from the Church towards the victim, towards Ukraine. But I think that the Putin will hardly listen to the Church. It was not the case for Francis, who showed some more sensitivities toward Russia, and I think will be less likely to do this with the new Pope Leo.
All right, Missimo D'Angelo from Loughborough University London Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs. Thank you very much for your analysis.